On the last episode of your build, we left off at James's.
Yep.
Driving off into the sunset with your glorious new exhaust. Now we're heading to the dyno. What has happened between now and then in preparation?
So I had a clutch failure. The slave cylinder decided to stop working. Worked with KMiata, they were great. Sent me a new slave cylinder setup, some alignment dowels, slapped the whole thing back together, and I managed to break in the clutch before dyno day, which is key. So it's got about probably 200 miles on the clutch setup since I put it back in and before dyno day. So it should be good enough to hold whatever Rick's gonna throw at it. It's pretty much ready to go. I've been driving it around. It's fun. Definitely needs a tune, but it's fun.
After getting, didn't you have a issue with VTEC at all? That was...
Yeah, VTEC was coming on every so often.
It wasn't VTECing, yoing all the time?
It wasn't like Honda Boy VTEC constantly. And then I replaced, there's like a VTEC solenoid array on the side of the head. I just replaced the whole unit instead of just replacing little pieces of the whole thing. And that seems to have done the trick. It pops VTEC now, right at 4,000 like we set it up in K-Tuner. It doesn't really feel like anything, but if you've ever driven like a 2012 Civic Si, it's the same thing. It doesn't really, you don't get that VTEC slam like you did in the A2s where your head just softly touches the headrest. It's just more noise, really.
With us going to Rick's dyno, he's got a little bit of a different dyno. So you've got your dyno jet, which is your clout maker. You know, that's when you're going for those big numbers. You go to a dyno jet. Mustang dyno, Heartbreaker dyno, you know, definitely a little more conservative numbers there. His is a Land and Sea.
Yeah.
Land and Sea dyno. Soul Taker. It reads even lower than a Mustang dyno. I had never heard of Land and Sea dyno until going to Rick's. But from what we read, yes, it is a very conservative dyno. But with that said, what are your expectations?
KMiata made over 200, like 206, I think, on a dyno jet, which, if you know a dyno jet, it's a non-resistance type of dyno, whereas a Mustang or a Land and Sea actually puts resistance into the rollers like you're actually driving down the road, so it's more real world. So I'm not expecting 206. I would like 200, but that's really shooting for the moon.
Now, is that 200 on pump?
200 on 93, yeah.
Okay, so 293, and then the rest is just bonus.
Right. It's got a flex fuel sensor,
okay.
So
yeah.
It'll adapt itself based on what the sensor reads out. So we've got 5 gallons each of E98 Ignite. So we'll tune for the high end, and then pump gas will be the low end, and then the graph will just kind of interpolate between the two, from what I can understand.
So we are gonna go find out what it makes. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's go.
171 and 130 torque. Yeah, 175 horsepower and 130 torque.
And we got the purple too.
175 and 130.
I'll take it. We are back from the dyno.
Yep.
It was a very long day, but we got some numbers to work through. We'll talk about that in a moment. What were we experiencing out there?
So I'm running K-Tuner instead of Honda, and we were having all sorts of little issues. It wasn't changing to the inputs that Rick was putting in, so we ended up fixing it. I think Rick restarted the tune like 5 times before it actually started doing what we were telling it to. So looking back, Honda was probably the right answer, and it might be the right answer moving forward for this car. We'll see when we get there. It's kind of a pain to switch, but so yeah, that was issue number 1, and that took several hours to figure out, just at no fault of anybody. I mean, big shout out to Rick for sticking it out. That was frustrating as all get out.
I mean, we were there for about 6 hours for your car alone, and what, 4.5 hours was purely just trying to solve this main issue of trying to get this tune uploaded and communicating. It just wouldn't listen to what Rick was trying to tell it to do.
So and then after that, once we got it running, we did some power pulls. He did some tuning, and it started to make nicer numbers. And then we noticed the flex fuel sensor was reading like 111% ethanol content, which is very impossible.
Inconceivable.
You can't do that. So
Can't do that.
we unplugged the flex fuel sensor. I think it's getting some sort of bad signal to ground, so I'm going to ground it here and see if that fixes it. Luckily, I have the laptop that holds the tune for this, so I can just do some work here before we bring it back. But it is going to go back. We're going to hopefully pull a little more power out of it. But on that note,
what did it make? So there is room for improvement for a couple different reasons, but where are we right now?
Right now, it makes 175 horsepower and 130 foot-pounds of torque. The torque is flat, and the horsepower is at 7,200 RPM. There's more to go in terms of redline. We capped it at 7,200. KMiata says 7,800 is okay for this, so we'll go back, we'll turn it up, and we'll see what it does. But
yeah, and the graph was still going up.
Yeah.
It's not like it was starting to plateau or anything. It definitely has more to give in the horsepower range. The sensor, too, could be holding you back, even just pump alone. We were unable to do corn and tune for that to see if it was worth the time. But regardless of that, there might still be room for improvement on pump.
I'm hoping there's still another 10 foot-pounds torque in there somewhere. That would put me in line with a scale factor to a dyno jet from what I've read on the internet. So, but granted, take everything you read on the internet with a grain of salt. So
yeah, we definitely will be going to a dyno jet in the future.
Yeah.
You know, I don't really like the thought of saying, hey, we read online that this reads around 12 to 15% lower than a dyno jet. That might make me feel warm and fuzzy inside, but I would really rather just find out. And every dyno is going to be different, regardless of company or brand or whatever, and especially even the day can be a little different. So we just want to find out.
yeah, we're planning on doing a couple of different dyno days around here just to get a good range of numbers. Running it on a dyno jet doesn't make it any faster. So
No.
it's just good to know the range that we follow.
We want that clout.
Dylan wants that clout.
I want that clout.
But yeah, the drive home was great. The car feels way better than it did when we pulled in. And really, the main reason to build this car was for it to be fun to drive, and it checks that box now. So
Yeah.
I'm happy with it.
And that's really the point.
Yeah.
You know, the point isn't really, bragging about big numbers. Does it feel faster? For a fact, that car was making double digits before this swap. So that alone is a big win of itself.
I'm happy with it.
More stuff to come. Next video, we'll be driving the car. We'll get some rollers. We're going to get some impressions of what it's like to drive. So subscribe down below. Kick that bell notification. Follow along. More fun stuff coming your way. Woot.
Woot.
Woot. Yurt. How do we start these things again?
All right, so better.
Much better. Yeah.